Welcome, wonderful listeners, to our second episode of the Young and Successful podcast, where we decode the secrets to success and discuss all the ways you can make your millions. We hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Max. Definitely some interesting conversations had and some great lessons learned that I even took to heart. This week, we have one of my closer, newer friends coming on the podcast that is going to be providing us with some fantastic insights into the world of finance and venture capital from all around the world. He has studied and done work throughout Asia, Africa, and North America. I am your host, Carl Grin, and I am thrilled to have you join us as we delve into the money-making magic. Okay, so, hey, welcome on.
Nice to meet you. I guess, thanks for having me on, Carl.
Yes, it's a fun one because we've just met recently, but I've seen how you interact with people and that you're actually a successful human person. So then I start talking, and I'm like, oh, what do you do? And we get talking and kind of thing, and then it's you're interesting, then I invite you on. But what is your story? Like, I don't actually really know too much yet.
Yeah, so we could kind of go ahead. So I was born in Taipei, and I moved around a lot in Asia as a kid growing up, and finally settled
within Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
You mean like all around?
Mostly within I guess Chinese speaking, because that's my ethnic background, Chinese. And I moved around a couple places with my dad while going through, as Asia was going through that rapid development, economic development in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually found myself in Vancouver with my sister and my mom.
And the whole family came over there?
No, just my sister and my mom. My dad actually ended up staying in China. He was in Shanghai for work. And me, my mom, and my sister came to Vancouver. And that's where I spent, I guess, the longest amount of time.
Do you love the cold or something? Like, what you gonna do?
Well, at the time, I think my parents had a really good time in grad school. They did it both they both have graduate diplomas, or my dad has an MBA and it's from the States.
Okay.
So they enjoyed the Western culture, and I think my dad really wanted me and my sister to have a little bit of that growing up. Okay. So we decided to move. He decided to move us to Vancouver, and then eventually we stayed there until I guess high school finished. So I spent the rest of my childhood there.
Okay, nice. Yeah. And then you came to Toronto to go to school, right? Is that
yeah. So I attended U of T, which is the University of Toronto.
Okay.
I was in the finance program there at Raman. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So that's why some of the other friends I've met, everything. That's why you're a big finance guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like I work at a bank, yes, but I wouldn't consider myself the most stereotypical finance bro. I think nowadays a lot of guys work in investment banking, or they have a title called investment banker.
Yeah.
I actually work on the public side of markets, so I work on the trading floor. And this is where we deal with things that are already listed, that is publicly tradable.
So your job is basically like when people think of the old school Wall Street screaming on the floor, you're the new style of that then, right? Is that that's most people think of that old school, right? Like, is that what you do? Like,
so it's a little bit different now.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously, times changed, and there's a little bit more, I guess, technology. People are a little bit less aggressive, I'd say, and that culture being like a very frat environment has kind of died down, tamed down a little bit.
Technology did that a little bit.
Yeah. But there's still a little bit of reminiscence of the old culture, I'd say, on the trading floor, and you definitely feel that out sometimes. And that is a portion where I think people have, I guess, different opinions on it. I personally was okay with it, but some of the newer my coworkers or the younger people on the floor, they might not be necessarily super happy about the way things were done or previously done.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense, I guess. I guess that kind of leads into a good next topic, a transition here. That obviously being on this podcast and being around and having a lifestyle you live, you're a more successful individual than the average person. You are a young and successful person.
Yeah.
What led to that? Is there any specific values, or what led you to believe in wealth creation, or why do you believe you should achieve this success? What do you attribute it to? Was there any mindsets, any goals there?
I think for me, I always had the mindset of, if there's an opportunity in front of you, just take it and ask questions later about it.
And that's never gotten you any sticky situations?
I mean, there probably has been several times, but I was always like, even as a kid, as a child, like when the teacher would ask for any volunteers, I put my hand up, right? So that was me as a kid. Like,
you don't know what you're volunteering for yet.
And then if it ends up being something I don't like, or something that could get me in trouble, obviously back out of it. I always felt safe doing that. I never had a situation where I was like, oh, like this is too much, and then I can't even get myself out. So I never, obviously be smart about it. If someone's like asking you to buy some drugs and you're like 12. Like you're not.
Okay, yeah. We're not having anything crazy like that. We're just the whole idea that the outgoing people and you're just open to the opportunities. So there's like, there's people out there, your dad or like your mom. There's nobody that went like, okay, now you got to save 50% of your income and you got to put it into this bond or this stock. That wasn't like a thing as a kid. You're like, okay, now I'm giving you $10 in allowance and $10 stays in the piggy bank. Like, wasn't that growing up or like what kind of?
My childhood was very special, actually. My parents took a laissez-faire approach, I'd say. It was kind of like, do whatever you want. I know in most traditional Asian households, it's a lot of like helicopter parents, where you need to get the good grades, you need to get a good job, you need to do whatever, right?
That is stereotypical.
Right, that's stereotypical as in, like, back in China, I had plenty of friends who grew up like that. But my parents always took the approach of, like, it'd be nice if you did well, but it's okay if you didn't get straight A's. It's okay if you didn't get.
So you found they were supportive even if you got a B or a C or
right. And maybe you can call it like reverse psychology a little bit, but I found that because it was the way it was, I actually pushed myself harder than my parents did.
Yeah, I feel the exact same. That's where I didn't know about you. Like my parents were the exact same.
Yeah.
My dad's like, you don't need to go to school. School always be there. Come do this thing. I'm like, no, I want to go. I want to.
Right. You want to do.
I was like, school's been around forever. This experiment might not be a thing. So it's So your parents didn't push you to like, you need to get A's to.
No. Like I mean, obviously, like it's you get
supported,
right? Rewarded for. I don't know, getting good grades, right? They would be happy, they'd be proud of me if I got good grades.
Yeah.
But it was never like I guess, requirement for their love or for their affection.
Okay.
So it wasn't like they would punish me for not doing well. And I think that really helped me develop as a guy who would take opportunities, because it would be like, okay, well, there's no punishment for doing bad. Why don't I try everything, right? So.
Yeah, so I've met you, and I've seen you here, and we've had some fun. We were at the UFC fight last night.
Yeah.
We've gone poker games today. We've done a lot of cool stuff in Toronto, but anybody listening to this doesn't know where you're at now in life. They don't know.
Right.
Like, they don't know. They're taking my word that you're a successful human being, but can you elaborate on like where you're at now, at least you are, where you're at?
So I can give a quick rundown, I guess, in terms of like professional.
At least where you're at.
So I started my career, I guess, as my first ever job was in sales. I sold shoes at a shoe store.
Okay.
And I think that developed a lot of the soft skills I needed, because I wasn't the most outgoing kid.
Yeah.
But I obviously like talking to people, enjoy hearing stories. That really forced me to learn on how to really negotiate, how to sell, how to talk to people.
Yeah.
And from then on, it kind of pivoted towards, okay, where do I want to go to university now, right? So, and I decided, and that was part of my decision, was to come to Toronto, which is the biggest city in Canada. And I figured, you know what, I like talking to people, I like hearing stories, so might as well come to Toronto and see what it's like here. I didn't want to go to a small town or a small university town where I would be constrained by the population there. Mm-hmm. And coming here, in my first year, I was kind of feeling things out, went on a lot of coffees with different, I guess, professionals. Hey, what do you guys do? Just feeling things out, people who own a business, how is that like? What is that like? And I try to find out where I want to place myself. I eventually came across venture capital. And this is interesting, right? Because it ties into, I think, a lot of other guests you might have on here where they're in the startup world.
Yeah, that's a big common thing. A lot of people have their own business. That's a common thing. Because to get that trajectory from being 18, 19, sitting at home, to being a millionaire, to be on this podcast, to be in somebody that's considered the top echelons of success by an age group.
Right.
Usually you got to found something or start something yourself. So
So venture capital, for people that don't know, they invest in startups, right? They're investors that back startups. Now, with that said, I found venture capital. I was like, okay, this is an opportunity that I could have. And I did an internship at a venture capital fund, an asset management.
In Toronto?
No, this was in Taipei.
Oh, okay, so back home. Okay,
right, so this is just context. It was during COVID, and I am actually a dual citizen, and I had the opportunity to go back to Taiwan. At the time, they didn't have COVID restrictions.
Okay.
So they didn't have COVID there. So when everyone here in North America was in lockdown, Taipei, Taiwan was fully just open. You could do whatever you want, and I was like, I'm going to go back. However, it being the summer and you're a student, you're like, I just want to go back and just sit in the mountains, right?
Yeah.
And hang out with my parents.
Yeah.
I want to do something. So I took a look at everyone that I could contact, people that I know, went online, searched up a couple firms, emailed them. Hey,
cold email.
Yeah, cold email, or I used every line I had, right?
Yeah.
like
sales
like an uncle knows someone that might know someone. Yeah, like I'll give them a call too, right? So I did everything you could think of.
Okay.
In terms of just looking for an opportunity, and luckily one firm picked me up, and they're like, hey, like you seem like a good guy. You're from a Canadian degree or working with your Canadian degree. You're Taiwanese, but you speak perfect English. So why not come work for us for a little bit? And while I was there, I actually met my old boss. He works in, I guess, the startup space. He's a serial entrepreneur, has a couple companies.
Yeah.
I got involved in one of his companies quite early on, obviously being in venture capital, you meet some guys in startups.
Yep.
And he is Taiwanese American. So he had some opportunities in LA that I was able to get on early.
Oh, cool. So you were in the States kind of,
Yeah, so
like that big American MBA. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I did this thing with him. You know, we started a company pretty much. I was part of part of the founding team, helping them set up this company.
Okay.
And it was quite interesting. We built it a decent size, but eventually I realized it's not what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I liked and I enjoyed my experience in that realm. But the role, I guess, I found myself in a little bit after graduation. The idea was to drop out and just work at this startup full time.
That's not what you want to do, though.
That's not what I want to do. And also the things that we're doing, there's an operational role, right? After you build a startup, building a startup is really fun.
Yeah.
But after I found my role, it's just me, I'm just managing this company, right? And I didn't want to do that. I felt like there was always something.
Instead of finance, you're now in operations.
Right.
Instead of talking to people, you're not talking to your employees. Different. Just a different job.
Right. It's a different job, and I didn't want to do that. I had no interest in that. So I had to take a step back and look at, okay, what am I actually interested in?
Okay.
And one thing that consistently, I think for my life, that stood out to me was always the finance, like in particular the stock market.
Yeah.
I found it crazy. It was a crazy concept that people could make money out of thin air. Right, because at the end of the day, stocks, what you can say, okay, they actually represent like a physical asset or a portion of a physical asset.
The idea that,
but it's just numbers on a screen at the end of the day, right? And
like that, like if you buy Apple at 100 and sell it at 104, Apple's still Apple. They didn't sell more iPhones. They didn't sell more iPhones. They didn't make any more computers that day than the other day. They went up for it.
Yeah, exactly. That was fascinating to me. And I obviously started trading whenever I legally could, which was 18 in Canada. And I've always been doing, even though I was working at several other places, I always had my own portfolio, always kept track of the markets, was always interested in the markets. And I figured, you know what, let's give this a shot.
Okay, we're going to quickly jump into something here.
Yeah.
As a guy that does stocks and everything, would you recommend the first thing you do, max your TFSA and your FHSA for young people? First home savings account, your tax-free savings account.
I would, obviously max out those two. I wouldn't try to beat the market, but I would try to just be the market. So I think a lot of guys, young guys specifically, they have an ego.
Yeah.
They have there's professionals who get wiped out, who don't beat the market.
Yeah.
How do you expect that you, being a young guy, know what you're doing with options, know what you're doing with crypto, know what you're doing with anything? So don't just buy the S&P 500, enjoy the ride, and retire.
I remember thinking a little side note, when I was younger, I thought I was smarter than the average person. And I have like, I'm doing so great. And I tried to make my own like ETF basically. I'm like, I buy all the baskets and everything. And I did beat the market. I thought it was great. And then I looked back at my trading fees. I'm like, wow, I made double digits, but all the money I paid in trading fees, I'm like 4%. If I just put it in, I would have made 4 more percent. Because I was thinking about the trading, not the dollar, the $10, the $5 every time I'm doing all that. So it's like, I did all this work, I made more money than the S&P 500, but I lost more money because I wasn't paying attention. That's when you're 18, you're thinking you're smart, you're not seeing every detail. It's passive too. And
the thing is, like, another thing is, I looked at it on a risk to reward ratio. If you're throwing in an index, you spend no time thinking about it. No time worrying about it either. If you're day trading in and out of positions, let's say like a couple of years ago, GameStop, right? GME tobacco. I was one of those kids like, I'm going to hold GameStop is going to go to the moon. But every day I'd be waking up at 6 a.m., like looking, like scrolling Wall Street bets, trying to find, what's the next like stock that's going to move. Right. And that was like, although it was fun and I'm glad I had that experience, it was stressful, time consuming. I could have probably spent my time a lot better somewhere else.
Well, that's the thing too, is you can also think about it as like people want to get, like most jobs is an hourly wage. So I spent like 100 hours doing that, and let's say 100 hours I made $1,000, I made $10 an hour. all my trading time. I spent so much time doing something. I put on the XP100, and I made $500 for 1 hour. I made $500 an hour. I mean, you can look at it like too. It has time as value too, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's what you're saying. You can make money, but if you're stressed and not actually being valuable,
right.
Yeah.
I think another thing is people. I think a lot of guys online, they try to, I don't know, show themselves off as, oh, I'm a day trader. Look at my life. And these private jets, they have these yachts. They have like all the crazy things you can think about.
Well, that's the thing is, our friends here have private jets, have yachts, have this stuff.
Right.
And it's just like we know they don't. Like, this isn't a person that actually has friends. We say on the internet. Yeah.
As one of my mentors once told me, anyone worth their salt isn't trying to sell you something. They would be trading in the markets, right? They would be doing it themselves.
Yeah.
They would be like telling everyone their strategies, because if they did that, it would stop working.
Yeah, they don't want to create their own competition.
Right, exactly. They're creating their own. So I think as a young person, my advice would be, if you're looking into active management of your own portfolio, yes, you can dabble in it. It's a good way to learn, but make sure the sources you're learning from aren't the internet gurus. The more someone tries to sell you something, the less likely it is to be true.
Yeah.
And that's my view.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm going to kind of one more topic there. Is that I had a hard time with that at the start, because I grew up in a family that was very athletic and sport.
Yeah.
And there's so many good volunteer dads and volunteer coaches that actually try really hard to teach you for free, and they like try to help you and like that kind of thing. So you think people are good, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of great people, but on the internet, you have to be a little more skeptical, because not everybody has access to everything, and so some people can be a little more tech savvy that way. So we got a little bit of a tangent there.
Yes.
We're going to try to go back to being and who you are.
Yeah.
What your things are. So we're going to try to approach in your challenges and your kind of approach to life as in at the start. So let's say when you're in VC, before you went, now you're at bank and you're doing trading on the floor and stuff. In that time, were there any challenges that you faced that were at the initial stage? You're like, okay, I feel like I know what I'm doing, and then you get in there, you're like, whoa, I have no idea what's happening. I'm scared, I'm afraid, I don't know. It's just completely uncertain. Is there anything that you've had that way that you felt helped shape you or change you or make you into who Ping is today?
I think so, yeah. I think there's more relating back to the startup. It's just taking that leap of faith. As with most startups it's like you have instability, right?
Yeah.
You can either do the route. I mean, I am back on that route of just, the boring.
It was your choice, though.
Right.
It's not even, you don't find it boring now. You're like,
right. It's what I'm interested in. Right. But like, stereotypically more standard or basic routes of wealth, right? Unlocking wealth. You go through school, get a good grade, get a competitive job that pays well, and then work, 20 years in that job in your career, and then go start your own thing.
Yeah. But that's have a little boost at the start.
Right.
I mean, it's something else, and then it's okay.
Yeah. So coming back to your question on if there was anything that I thought or any challenges I faced, and I think that was the biggest challenge in making that choice. I was debating, because it was a huge time sink. Doing school and working full time at the same time is not something I recommend at all. And I did both because I felt an obligation to my parents to finish school, because they're educated, they wanted me to finish school as well. But I also felt an obligation to my old boss, the CEO of the company, saying like, hey, I want to obviously make sure that the company succeeds. So I was torn between the two. Obviously, one paid me, one didn't. So.
So your parents were supported in your whole life through a lot of good things. So it's hard. Yeah, it's a hard decision.
So in the end, I had to choose, right? Like, hey, do I really want to do this, or do I really want to do just the more basic? In the end, obviously, it was for different reasons I walked away. But
so, how did you overcome that obstacle? Was there a family member that helped persuade you? Did you contact a confidant? Did you just sit in your room alone and meditate every morning at 4 a.m. and go for runs and lift those bolts? How'd you overcome that? Did you find a quote? You're like, oh my goodness, now my life has changed. Like, how'd you make that decision?
This might sound stupid, but I think for me, I just took what I always knew was grab every opportunity that you have and seize it, right? So I had opportunities that had in front of me.
Yeah.
I was just like, you know what? I can sleep when I'm dead. I'm just gonna do it.
Okay.
Right. I was running like 3 hours of sleep for weeks on end. And like every 3 hours of sleep every day for weeks on end. Because I remember I'd be hopping up on like at 6 a.m. for calls we had with our Asian partners, and then doing the whole school day, and then obviously staying up late to study and whatever, and then do rinse and repeat every single day.
Yeah, I get that. When I had my consulting firm, I was working for Amazon full-time 12-hour shifts.
Right.
It's crazy. Dealing with people in Asia, dealing with people in the East Coast, West Coast. So and you're like, yeah, I'll sleep later. I will sleep when I'm dead. Yeah, that idea.
Right, and I think a lot of people, I guess young people, they yes, you do have these opportunities in front of you, or some people they might not even think they have these opportunities, but honestly, they are in front of you. Look, and if they get discouraged in the beginning, I just say, you know what, just suffer through it. You gotta suffer. That's just part of the process. I actually enjoyed a little bit parts of it because at the end of the day, I'm like, this is the journey, right? This is the journey on how to, and you learn things along the way.
Yeah, so I guess that actually turns really into our next topic, really, is that you were doing venture capital, you were being extremely financially successful, you were at the top of the startups, you were in that world, you were doing well, but then you chose to take a step back, go to school, but that doesn't make you any less successful in your eyes. So what do you define success? Success is a spectrum, it's all across. Right. Like, how do you define success? Is it, I can bench 220 pounds a mile, or is it like what do you define? Because obviously you're successful now and you're enjoying your time and you make those decisions. Yeah. You don't feel bad about them. So obviously money isn't the only thing how you define success.
Right. So personally, I feel like I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still very young. Well, but I think from my idea of success is just doing something that matters to you and that you like. I think a lot of people get tunnel vision on the money. They just want to make money, they just want to make money, they just want to make money. And they lose sight of that. Yes, money's great and all, but like I think it's more important. What's more important is you're doing something you actually like and something that you actually enjoy. And if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you should probably take a step back and look at maybe there's another opportunity to do. Because I'm a big believer, if you enjoy what you do, you'll be successful at it. And then the money will come, right? So I don't think...
makes sense.
I don't think, or even if the money doesn't come, at least you're happy, right? And does the money really matter at the end of the day? So let's say
a lot of people would argue, so have you ever seen those studies that's like after $70,000? I think it's like
the diminishing returns on like every other dollar is
the happiness, the happiness scale. It's like once your basic needs are met, right? Yeah, sure. Driving sports cars and we get McLarens and we get where we're at the side of the UFC. Yeah, that's great, that's fun, but that doesn't fulfill us. We have fun with that. Yeah. Right, but that doesn't make us successful. That doesn't make us happy. Sure, there's fun aspects to that. Right. But yeah, so if you're defining success and defining happiness should be one and the same, but a lot of people don't. I get what you're getting at.
I think so. I think when I look back at some of my friends who are the happiest people, I'm from the West Coast, so a lot of people are very happy there.
Sure.
I view them as successful, although they might just be like they're not working in high-paying jobs or whatever. They could be like a yoga instructor. Yeah. I view them as very successful people because they're very happy.
Well, if they're happy and content with their life, they're not upset with themselves, then that's definitely success for sure.
And in a way, they have made it. They work towards a goal of being happy, and then they're there, right? Yeah, and then what else really can you ask for?
Yeah. So how does that translate to your mindsets around money then? Because I've had people talk like, "Oh, money's just fun tokens." I just Like, how do you view money? Are you like?
I think for me, money is just a means for me to have my basic needs met. Right? I think a lot of people you might have on the podcast who are chasing the success, they're looking to do things to, I guess, further their lifestyle or, the next thing. For me, I'm always grateful for what I have. And I think what I have is pretty good already. Like I'm in a good spot, a high paying job. I made some money in startups before I came into this. And it's great. It's great. Will I enjoy getting the next promotion and making more money? Obviously. Who doesn't?
But said about that, I think everybody would be like, no, I don't.
Yeah. When the bonus season hits for the bankers, right? Everyone's happy because you get a bonus, right? Yeah. Like that's amazing. Yeah. But am I going to let it dictate my life in a way that for the extra $10,000 I have to wake up at an hour, 2 hours earlier? No, that's not.
But you would if you did it before the money. If you liked what you were doing and it wasn't about the $10,000, you were excited what you were learning, it's different. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's not about the money.
Exactly. For me, it's always been less about the money per se. It's more about what I actually want to do. Yeah. And I think it speaks volumes that I switched from that world, I guess more in a way more higher paying world of startups and venture capital into working at a bank, because I did take a pay cut.
Of course.
So it's like a significant pay cut to come here. But you know what? This is what I like doing, and this is what I'm interested in, and I like learning about the things, and this is a cool experience I will treasure forever. So I personally view that money is just a means to make my basic needs met. If they're met, I'm okay with doing whatever I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. So getting to that mindset and getting to that thought process, were there any, I guess the easiest way is there any significant lessons or things that you felt like you had to learn or do during that? Like, was there anything you're like, okay, you know, like in my third year finance class, this derivatives, like, and that lesson, that professor changed my life? Or is it like when my dad sat me down when I was 4 and he decided I can't buy the lollipop and the cotton candy? You know what I mean? Like, were there any things where like you could just look back at that one time where it just hit you and like, no, that lesson I learned, what I've just learned right now has made me change my outlook on life? Like any little times?
This might be a controversial topic,
no,
but
better, even more fun, sure.
So I at U of T was part of a fraternity, and I look back at that. Should we not?
No, but here's funny. Okay. As an athlete, as a frat guy, we always look at it. It's always fun.
Okay, well, this is a controversial topic.
That's why I like it.
But I was part of a fraternity, and as you know, fraternities have certain things you have to do, and they're difficult. For me, I think the lesson I really took from that is never give up.
So like you're talking about the frat at the start, when they're like, okay, you have to run a mile in the morning before breakfast, or whatever other things actually occurred, or whatever those hardships that were put on you by your peers.
Yeah. So I think having that kind of base where like, hey, I did do something difficult, I did do something hard, and I was able to overcome it by not giving up, by just trying, because I wanted to do it. And obviously, if you don't want to do something, you don't have to do it. But I wanted to do it, and I was able to overcome it. That gave me a lot of inner confidence in terms of things I can achieve. If I just work at it, I believe in myself. And I'm actually a big believer that anyone can do whatever you want to do if you just put your mind to it. I don't think I'm particularly smart. I don't think I'm particularly like high EQ either. I just found myself that I just put my hand up. I was the one that was willing to do things. And
yeah, I 100% agree on the idea that anybody can do anything, but I think there is within reason.
Yeah,
you're not going to get somebody who has really short arms so against Michael Phelps.
Right.
You know what I mean, like, there are people that have inherent better things, like Usain Bolt, really tall, fast runner. You know what I mean? Like, there are certain things. Like,
I think when it comes to like some things like physical, obviously they're like. I'm never gonna be 6 feet tall, for example. I'm not that tall.
But you play basketball.
Right, but I played basketball in high school. Right?
So you still did that kind of stuff. But like when in high school, your parents think you can do whatever you want. You're like, okay, I'm going to go be a center for the NBA. It's like, okay, no.
Yeah, that's not realistic.
Like, maybe if you worked really hard, you could, but it's not an efficient use of your time.
Right. I agree with what you said there, but I'm also when I said like anything you do anything you want, I think it's more the cerebral aspect of things. I think if you really put your mind to it and you work hard on something like a skill that you want to develop, obviously you can't grow an extra 4 inches if you're too short to play in the NBA. But if you work, like, let's say you're bad at math, you worked hard on it, you can't be not bad at math.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. So were there any mistakes you've made in that history with well, it's obviously as a student, especially in the business school, you've made lots of mistakes. You go, look at those parts go wrong.
Yeah.
But the idea that in life where when you're in the VC or the venture capital stuff, or even in the frat or anything, where you make a mistake and you're like, wow, that sucked. And then later back in life, you're like, I'm happy I made that mistake because I've learned from it and now I don't want that.
Okay, this is less so related to business, but it's more
anything in life.
Right. So when I was in Taiwan, when I was working for the venture capital firm, we just got put on this new project, and I was working very hard at it.
Yeah.
And at the time, my grandpa, he was in the hospital. And
is he okay now, or
he's unfortunately passed away.
Okay.
But he was in the hospital, and I remember my mom one day asked me, she says, hey, like, do you want to just take a day off work and go see grandpa at the hospital? He's been there for a while, so I wasn't like, but I remember there was a thought in my head where I was like, this might be the last time I'm going to see my grandpa, right?
Thought, yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, but then I kind of like rationalized. I'm like, you know what, it's fine. Like, if I really have to go see him, I can go see him tomorrow. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And you know what? It ended up being the last opportunity for me to see him.
Did you go?
I missed it. And I think I would carry that for the rest of my life as like a pretty big regret I had. And that put perspective on things as to, at the end of the day, money's great and all, success, work is great and all, but it's about who you care about, right? It's about your family, it's about your friends.
Yeah, that didn't even sound horrible to say, but doing that made you almost who you are. Like the idea that it made you take a step back.
Right.
You know what?
Right. Like
obviously, you wish we both wish it never happened. You wish you were there, if that didn't happen, you might not have had the same perspectives on life as like understanding.
Yeah, and that's a really, I guess, good lesson for me is that at the end of the day, if I'm happy and the people around me are happy, the people I care about are happy, that's really, and maybe this is the definition of success for me.
Okay,
like,
there we go. Circling back to it.
Yeah, like this is what I care about.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it could be like, hey, it'd be nice to buy my future wife, like a nice bag or something, right? Like that does cost money. But it goes back. If she doesn't want that, that's totally fine. I don't need to be spending 10 hours a day in the office, right? Instead, I can take a job that takes 6 hours a day in the office.
Yeah.
And then I spend time with her, and she's happy about that. I'd be extremely happy, and I view myself as extremely successful being able to pull that off.
Yeah, it's nice that we're at the stage in our life that we actually can make those decisions.
Right.
And that's not even about the money. It's, that our thought process and your mental clarity and how you view time and money is already at your age.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a definition. That's a modicum of success right there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And I just think I kind of want to bring it back to my grandma. I want to explain the situation.
Okay.
He had late stage Alzheimer's, so it wasn't like he didn't really know, wouldn't really remember me, but I just like a warning, and I want to tell from my mistake.
Yeah.
Even though you have a family member, you think, they're being fine. Just pick up the phone, call them, say hey, I love you. I just want to check in.
Yeah, even if you can't remember you, that matters.
Right, that does matter because you don't want to end up in my situation where I end up regretting that, and I'll probably regret that for the rest of my life, right? So
my great grandma had Alzheimer's as well. And,
yeah.
Same kind of thing. I went up and I was lucky enough to visit her pretty often because my family's very close, and I always try to make that. At the time I'm like, oh mom, I don't want to go visit grandpa. I don't want to go up and visit. She's like, no, you're coming. She kind of forced me to, right? I was a little younger, and I was the one that actually buried her in the ground and lowered her down. But I remember for the last few years, I could go in and I could sit there and I could smile at her. And she'd be like, oh, you have a beautiful smile. And I could do a 360.
Yeah.
And she'd think I was a completely different person. Hello again, right? When you're going there, especially when you're younger, you're like, dude, they don't even know who I am. Why do I need to go?
Yeah.
But looking back on it, I'm happy I did.
Right. And I'm really glad that you did that. Obviously, it's a little bit hard for me because they were in Asia at the time.
Yeah, it was like a 6 hour car ride. So it was a lot for me, but I could still just get in the car and go.
Right. So for me, it'd be like a 24-hour commute with that plane to get there, right? So it was a little bit more difficult for me, but I remember thinking that very distinct thought, this might be the last time it is being true. Unfortunately for me, but I did draw lessons from it. And
Yeah, so moving forward after your life, after these things, were there any developmental mindsets or habits or things you do that you can attribute at least to your success or who you are as a person right now?
Yeah.
We briefly touched on it first, there's the people that get up every morning and I'm on a keto diet and I'm on this diet, or I get up and I run a mile every morning, I run a marathon every Sunday, or I know you doing your steps every day. Is that something? Is that it's on this stair climber? Is that something that you attribute your success to, or is it just what you like to do, or is there any habits that you need to do to be who the thing is?
I think a lot of people these days are also on motivation. How do I motivate myself to do more things? Motivation. I don't think. Even though I do a lot of things, other people would consider I work out, I consistently, and from a young age I've been doing that. I used to do sports all the time as a kid, and obviously with work, it's a demanding job. A lot of people would probably won't be able to do it. I just found the easiest way to motivate myself is put yourself in situations where you have to do it, and you won't think about it, right? For example, if you don't want to go to the gym, okay, sure, you don't want to work. When say go to the gym, you don't want to work out, right? Well, guess what? Put yourself on the cardio machine, on the treadmill, and then you'll start working out. You just have to put yourself in the situation. Yeah, get peer pressure almost by the people you don't even know. Right, exactly. That's weird, guys. Been staying on the cardio machine for 4 hours. Stand there until you do it. Right? I mean, at least you're there, and then or another thing is okay, you don't want to work hard, or let's say you don't want to study. Well, guess what? Put your butt or get your ass into a library and sit there and watch everyone around you studying. And realize, oh crap, what am I doing? I should be studying, and then you'll start studying. Yeah, right. So put yourself into the scenarios. It's what's that saying? Showing up is half the battle. Exactly. Get to the gym, get to the library, open the book. At least start there, because in all fairness, going to the gym is no work. Right. Literally just showing up to the gym isn't much work. Yeah. Then when you're there, it's okay, I'll do the next thing. Right. Exactly. It's okay, I'll just go on the treadmill for a bit. Well, now I'm here. Maybe I go on the bike. Maybe I can do a little bit. Right. So, and then gradually helps. Yeah, it gradually helps, and you kind of get used to it. You're like, okay, this is actually not that bad as I thought. For someone who's first starting to work out, obviously everything's kind of scary. Everyone's big, you don't know what you're doing with the weights.
Yeah, I've seen you at the gym. Yeah.
But you're bigger than me, bro. but there's you're scared in the beginning, mm-hmm. but as you expose yourself more and more, you get more comfortable. And once you're more comfortable, you find yourself, oh yeah, I can do these things, and you tell yourself it's fine, it's not that bad. And now it becomes okay. I actually like going to the gym. I enjoy spending time working out with my friends, because I'm assuming you make friends and you go to the gym, mm-hmm. And then it becomes habit, and now it's just part of your life.
Yeah. I will just disagree with one point. I don't generally expose myself in public, but I don't get up and expose myself too much.
Well, I didn't meet you in a sauna, right? So
yeah, that's fair. You didn't meet me for a sauna. Yeah, that does make sense. Maybe I do. Maybe I'm a little bit of a liar there. My bad. So can you talk a little bit about some specific venture? We touched a little bit on the VC stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously, you've worked on a lot of different things. Was there something like extremely unconventional, like? With one of our last guests, Max, he was in crypto and now into baking. Like that's extremely unconventional from a guy to go from like Web3 and selling, online photos in simple NFTs to making bread. Like, is there any unconventional jump you did? Obviously, we've talked about you going from VC back to school. Was there anything specific that was like, whoa, nobody expected that? Your parents, not anything, not even yourself. You're like, how did I get here this week? You ever have that?
I think it's the first day on the trading floor.
That one. You went to finance school and then that was okay.
So. If you didn't know, it's extremely competitive.
Never been. Yeah.
What was it? Like Goldman Sachs take like less than 1% of applicants to the interview.
Okay.
And then out of that, they they take another, cut that in half, put that in a quarter. It was 6 interviews to get to just like the summer position. And the summer position, for me,
okay.
And for me, the summer position is actually a summer, you're pretty much doing what you're doing, otherwise you'd be doing as currently right now. But it's like an interview process, you're going to cut your class in half into the full-time when you graduate. So for me, that first moment where I stepped on the floor was a little bit surreal, because in the back of my head, I'm like, hey, I am a finance student, but compared to everyone here who did like internship after internship after internship, their dad's a banker, their mom's a banker, their parents are bankers, they come from a lineage of bankers. They've been wanting to do this their entire time.
Yeah.
Where I was coming in like, I was trying to figure out what I want to do, and I found out later, and then come in there and I'm like, oh my god, I'm here with these guys who like that's their like lifelong journeys to be there. That was pretty surreal.
Yeah. So then, how did you, I guess,
compete with them?
Well, yeah, but almost identify the opportunity to get there. Like, how did you look at that and be like, I could do that job?
Right.
Because a lot of people look at that and be like, oh, look at all these bankers from bankers from bankers from bankers, mom, everything. They're like, oh, that's not an opportunity for me. How did you even look at that and be like, that's not an opportunity?
What I did was I relied on the skills I picked up at my time at the startup. So at startup, we did a lot of sales.
Yeah.
So I was selling to investors, selling to partners, like potential strategic partners, right? Like there was a lot of sales.
Yeah.
And I looked at that as, okay, that's where my strengths lie. I'm not the smartest math guy, but I can work hard on math and get there, right? I can have a basic level. I understand if you don't even get the basic like derivatives, or you don't understand what the Black-Scholes model is, you're not getting on the floor. Like there's a certain barrier that you have, or GPA is not high enough. There's
basic knowledge for any job.
Right, for any job.
Like an electrician, if he doesn't know how to wire up a light switch, he's
right.
Like, I mean, simple. If he doesn't have the basic knowledge, he at least can't get the job.
Yeah, and I took that as okay. So I have matching skill level in a bunch of, I guess, categories.
Yeah. Now,
which category am I standing out with?
Okay.
And that was like, okay, sales. That's where I stood out. I guarantee you, any of those guys, at least, there's a mindset I had. I'm not saying this is the truth, but I believe that. I still can believe, I truly had to believe this. I was the most deserving person to get that job, that position, because simply I matched everyone on the base level in terms of skill. But on sales skills, I was like maybe triple or quadruple.
Yeah.
How people.
And even if it's not true, even if you don't know what it is, you believed it. So
I believed it.
You believe it. That was your reality.
Yeah,
that's not what it actually is.
Right.
That's your reality. That's happening.
That's exactly. And I took that approach with networking beforehand. So a lot of people go on like networking coffees or with bankers, senior bankers before they interview. Hopefully, the idea is you know the interviewer before you're in the interview room. So. That builds a little bit of rapport.
Yeah.
I did that. Funny enough, the bank I worked at actually was a complete dead lead. I had no one that in there I knew. Okay. It was my least networked bank.
Okay.
But they gave me the first opportunity, whether it's I think maybe a stroke of luck. Somehow my resume got flown through the system. I took the opportunity for the interview, and I went there like I deserve to be here.
I like you brought that up because Max touched on it too. That nobody gets where they are without a little bit of luck. Like we play a bunch of poker and stuff. And some days you're not lucky, some days you are.
Right.
But the idea that you could have the best skills, you can have everything, you could be the top of the job, but you just didn't get lucky. There's got to be something.
Right.
And yes, I 100% agree with, especially with what you told. You could make your own luck. Giving yourself those opportunities, taking the people out to college, doing the schooling, doing the stuff, gives you more opportunities to get lucky and to be luck. Have luck in your life. But that you have to have some sort of luck. And you can make more by going out and doing more. But I like that you just touched on it, because if everybody touches like, no, I just worked hard. I know lots of people, and you know lots of people that just worked hard.
Right, but
they never give themselves the opportunities to get lucky. There's
exactly. I think putting your hand up, and just sometimes, in social situations, I find myself doing this a lot. That's like, just bite that bullet, go talk to him, or go talk to her. Like, just bite it, just go for it, right? Like, what's the worst that could happen? Let's say you're at a function, you think this guy has an opportunity for your business, right?
Yeah.
And then you heard about him, whatever, and you think he's a cool guy. You're gonna regret the decision of not talking to him. Even if you just said, "Hey, nice to meet you. My name is." At least you made the introduction. That's half the battle. Showing up.
Yeah, we had that today. A whole bunch of other people.
Right.
Just actually, like, you go there, all these people are obviously more wealthy and more successful.
Yeah.
And just these big men in their worlds, and there's like we walk in, both shaking hands, just making friends. It's kind of fun.
Yeah,
it's good to actually. I've seen you actually do that just today. Exactly.
Right. I mean, I think like if you think someone has something to offer you, then I'm not saying that people just trying to extract value from everyone you meet. But if you have you think you want to hear their stories and interesting, just go do it. Just go talk to them. What's the worst that could happen?
I think it's a lot easier to do if you feel like you can provide some value back. At least as an interesting story, at least you're a kind the value you can provide back is just I'm kind.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, you can be kind. That's nice. People just smiling and saying hello is something people value, right?
Right.
You don't have to be like, oh no, I can buy them lunch and I can take them on my jet to my yacht. That's not the value people necessarily need. At least being kind or being something. So yeah. And I see when you go talk, it's like you do things too. You walk in, you're like, you just believe it. Myself, I am valuable.
Right.
Therefore, when I talk to you, I'm not talking to this crazy superior. I can at least give him something we can give and take, even if it's stories, even if it's
right. Exactly. And you can talk about shoot the shit about anything, right?
Yeah.
Anything you want. Like I heard you were talking to the guy about the UFC fight we watched last night, right? Like he's a big guy. You look like
he's in the UFC, and I said the guy's name wrong again. Because I don't know, you know fighters. I'm like, I don't know fighters. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know Matt Mallet. I'm like, he's like Mike. I'm like, yeah, Mike. I literally met the guy last night at dinner.
Yeah.
Fighter, Mike, and I pronounced it wrong, right?
Right. So,
but I was just trying to find some commonality.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. So how do you balance work, success, life? However it wants to be, women, dinners, parties, social media, work, jobs, your family back in other countries. How do you balance it all? Is there do you what is that?
The approach I took it as, if I don't want to do something, I don't do it. If I want to do something, I do it.
Okay.
And I think that's worked so far. So for example, I have two things coming up. One, I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. I just do what I want to do, and that's it. That's the simple.
You don't sit there and you're like, oh, I should really try to do both. How am I going to apologize? How am I going to?
No, I just say, hey, I'm sorry, can't make it. I got some other plans. I'm just going to do it. For example, granted, I'm feeling a little bit sick right now, so I could make it to dinner with my friend. Yeah, but I wanted to do this podcast, and I was like, I can grab dinner with my friend any other day of the week, right? So I just come here.
Right? Okay, yeah, fair. If you don't want to do something, you don't do it. That's I guess that's a really simple way. And so then I guess my next question was, how do you manage stress? How do you manage the stress of these things? But it's like, you almost answer that last. Like, is there any insights on stress? Because obviously being on the trading floor is stressful.
Yeah.
Right? Living that, and like going to school is stressful. Being in the VC firms is stressful. Is there like, do you do ice baths? Do you I know you actually don't.
Yeah.
But the idea is like, is there something you just need to do to de-stress? Like some people like to fight, some people like the UFC fighting.
Right.
When I was younger, I loved to play lacrosse. I like to be physical, go play hockey, go do something where I could expel my full physical energy, go snowboard mountains, that kind of thing. That's my release, is just, and sometimes I don't need to do it for 6 months, I don't even do it for a year, but I need to go and physically just do something.
Right. So for me, it was always been a physical, or up until recently, it's been a physical aspect. So in high school, I do sports.
Yeah.
University, I got into powerlifting. I was doing these powerlifting workouts with my friends. That was really fun. But I did suffer an injury, a concussion, a couple months ago. And that has taken me away from that. So I have to learn other ways of de-stressing. And one thing I did find is just breathing, and you can almost call it meditation.
We talked about the first day.
That surprisingly has helped a lot. I was actually genuinely surprised by it, because I was like in I guess when I was younger, very like aggressive, like, okay, you know, I did jiu-jitsu, I did boxing, I did like martial arts, right? I was like, okay, how do I de-stress?
Go hit something.
Yeah, I'm gonna go hit something. I'm gonna go like be really physical, you know, or go to work out in the gym. I'm gonna go deadlift, or I'm gonna squat, I'm gonna bench, right? Like heavy lifts. But I was like, okay, and I always thought like being Zen, you know, meditation, that's not gonna de-stress. That just makes things worse, right?
That's really can't be physical. Those
right. That's like the complete opposite, right?
Yeah.
But my physio, like for my recovery from my concussion, forced me to do like breathing exercise, forced me to do meditation. And
have you seen yourself get any better at breathing and meditation, or are you still the same? I don't know, I just breathe in bed. Like,
I mean, I think I try to follow a routine where like when I wake up and I do about 5 minutes, and then right before I go to bed, 10 minutes. So 15 minutes each day
of just like breathing, or like holding your breath.
What
do you do? Like,
depends on what the my physiotherapist tells me to do, depending on the week. But right now I'm doing box breathing, where it's like 5 seconds in, hold 5 seconds, 5 seconds out, hold 5 seconds.
I do like that you brought up too that you are trusting of others to help with your recovery. You know, you're not saying I'm smarter than everybody else. Everybody else. I'm doing this because I'm trusting my physio, because they actually trained in it, and I trust this person.
Yeah, I mean, she's a great girl. I had other physios before where they didn't really care, and obviously that led to some setbacks with recovery. And I always, you know, I'm not a professional in this. I don't know anything about Google things here and there, but I don't know how to rehabilitate someone. Right?
That's a huge lesson I had to learn. As a kid, I was a little too, I guess, just cocky. I was
self-reliant.
Well, as a kid, I'm like, I know more about sports than you, and I go to the physio to fix my leg. I'm like, I know how to stretch. What are you doing? Like, I've done this. I know, like, you know what I mean? I always come back and I'm like, you know, I could run faster, jump higher. Like, and I had that, you know, when I was 8, 10, 12. You know, I was a very, cocky kid. Yeah, it was somewhat justified, but not to the extent it was. Like, I wasn't acting or anything. I was a kid, right? Like, it was not justified. So I struggled actually trusting my physiotherapist to know what's right for me, and trusting my massage therapist. I had a few other issues too, but now I feel like I am. So it's nice that you touched on that topic too, that you actually realize you're not a god in this aspect. You don't know, and there's somebody that's trained in it. And you might take the right to find the right person for you, but you do trust somebody to actually help you on your journey, if that's recovery, if that's success, if that's whatever you find somebody you trust and actually take their advice.
Actually, I'm going to touch on, you just reminded me, I'm going to touch on martial arts for a little bit. And I think coming back to my childhood, doing jiu-jitsu and competing in tournaments and stuff as a kid, that really helped in a way of humanizing myself. Yeah. Realizing at the end of the day, you're just a human being. You're just like a bag of blood, pretty much. You're fragile, right? Like as a kid, I think a lot of people, young guys, think, oh, you know, we're Superman, we're invincible, we can do anything and conquer the world.
Yeah, they go bench 2 plates for the first time.
Right? So I think for me, jiu-jitsu was a humbling experience, because you'd be choked out by people. You're like, I think that's not athletic, you know, whatever. Like,
smaller than me, it's not athletic.
The next thing you know, you're like getting literally choked out by you, and then you're in. If it was like a real fight, you by tapping out, you're surrendering. You're saying, I would die. Yeah. And that was like a really cool experience for me. I'm like, oh my god, like this is so fun, because we're in a safe context, so we can practice like life or death game, but we're not actually, you know, like in battle for death. And I think that's helped me a lot in terms of my confidence, as well as just understanding that I'm not invincible. You gotta rely on other people sometimes. Like, I'm not the best there is. That's how you
rely on your coach to teach you.
Right, exactly. And you rely on your teammates, you rely on your friends, things like that. It's not a bad thing to rely on other people. I think that's the point I'm getting at.
So as our time kind of comes to a close here, the main thing I really want to ask you is there any key insights, anything that you feel like somebody should learn, a key takeaway from everything? You know, if it's whatever. Is it a quote you find that was really interesting that helped got you through things? Is there anything that you feel like actually would help, a little piece of advice moving forward? You touched on a lot of the stuff, like necessarily need to follow all the gurus online. You can find things. You can like put the S&P 500 instead of trying to make all your own trades and stuff. But is there any key piece of advice for the overarching everything?
I do have one. This is a quote I kind of live by.
I like that. I like quotes.
This might be a little bit cringe that I say it out loud.
No, it's good.
But I live by this, so I'm going to say it regardless. It's Adontis Fortuna Juvat. I don't know if you've ever heard it. It means fortune favors the bold. And
I like the Latin of it.
So for me, it's always been, okay, opportunities, right? Seize the opportunities you have in front of you. Lady luck is going to favor you, right?
I like the ending of that too, especially based on how I said, we like luck, and you got to give yourself the opportunities for the world that you like. That's it's a really good way to close it. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Well, that brings us to the end of the second fantastic episode on the Young and Successful podcast. We hope you've had as much fun listening as we've had sharing some of these amazing insights with you. Remember that making the first million is not just about the destination, it is about the journey, the lessons learned, the challenges conquered, and the laughter along the way. So don't forget to enjoy every step of your success story. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please give us a virtual high five by subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with your fellow dreamers and doers. And hey, if you've got a story to share, you want to be a guest, or a topic you want to dive into, slide in our DMs, drop us an email. We would love to hear from you. Until next Friday, stay young, stay hungry, and keep chasing those millions with a smile on your face. And always remember, there's a million ways to make $1 million. This is your host, Carl Grin, signing off.